At a tall company building, a meeting with the workers is taking place. The head manager ends the meeting by praising their good work and thanking them for their efforts over the past months. The workers acknowledge his words. As he leaves the room, the employees bow and greet him goodbye. Afterward, they talk about how the head manager noticed the potential of the R&D team and made an unexpected investment. In his office, the head manager walks in and collapses into his seat with a sigh. He soon looks serious as he tries to remember where he kept the company portfolio. While checking the drawer, he finds a wedding picture with his wife, Seojia. He stares at it with a thoughtful expression. His mind drifts back to a time when they returned home from work, both aware that their hours keep getting longer. Seojia reassures him that she has everything under control with the accounting team and reminds him that she became team leader through her own skills, not because of his connections. She smiles with confidence, certain of her own ability. Soo-hyun is seen trying to playfully tease his wife, but instead of laughing along, she reacts with irritation. Her voice rises as she scolds him, telling him to stop behaving in such a childish and animal-like way. Her tone sharpens as she begins to nag, complaining that he no longer listens to her, that he seems to have changed into a different person from the man she married. Her words sting, yet Soo-hyun attempts to brush them off, telling her not to be so irritable and wondering why she allows herself to get worked up over such small matters. However, Seojia refuses to back down. Her frustration grows, and she blurts out that if he continues acting this way, they should simply get a divorce. The sudden declaration stuns Soo-hyun, freezing him in disbelief. She continues, insisting that they should end their marriage and stop living in a way that makes her uncomfortable. Inwardly, Soo-hyun thinks to himself that once again his wife has resorted to threatening divorce, and the familiar bitterness washes over him. His eyes fall on their wedding picture, and he recalls their 2 years of marriage. He reflects on the many efforts he has made, the ways he has tried to change his personality, and the patience he has practiced in order to make her happy. Yet now he wonders if this is truly the reward for all his sacrifices. Back in the present moment, the sound of a knock on his office door interrupts his heavy thoughts. A young female employee steps inside, carrying a folder, and politely explains that she has brought the approval documents he requested earlier. Soo-hyun recognizes her and addresses her by name, Eun-biol, asking if she is still working so late. She replies that she still has a few tasks left to finish, and she politely offers to assist with anything else he might need. He thanks her for her dedication and tells her to wrap up quickly and head home, but she calmly insists that it is fine. With a gentle tone, she then asks if he himself is not heading home yet. Her words catch him off guard, and he grows slightly flustered, secretly wondering if she is deliberately speaking in such a caring manner. He quickly changes the subject, asking if there are any other matters he needs to be aware of. Eun-biol responds that regarding the new drug development project, the chairman has requested an organized report. Soo-hyun instructs her to simply review the most recent updates on his behalf. She nods, assuring him that she will take a look and report back to him soon. Before leaving, she adds a few words of encouragement, thanking him for his hard work and remarking that he must be exhausted after such a long meeting. Her polite formality lingers in Soo-hyun's mind as he watches her go. He finds himself thinking that such gentle words of respect and recognition can sound unexpectedly pleasant. His thoughts then shift to his own wife, whose tone is always cold and filled with nagging. The contrast unsettles him, and he cannot help but wonder how it is possible that the two women are of the same gender when their ways of speaking feel so vastly different. As Soo-hyun absent-mindedly fiddles with his pen, it suddenly slips from his grasp and rolls across the floor. Eun-biol quickly bends down and offers to pick it up for him. When she straightens and hands the pen back, Soo-hyun's eyes catch on a small tear in her clothing. He points it out, and she responds with a polite word of thanks before extending the pen toward him once more. In that brief moment, however, Soo-hyun's hand moves almost instinctively. Instead of simply taking the pen, he grasps her hand firmly, his eyes lingering on her attire. A troubled look crosses his face as he questions silently why she is dressed in such a way while at work. Eun-biol lowers her gaze and offers an apology in a quiet tone, as if embarrassed by his reaction. Yet Soo-hyun's thoughts only grow heavier. His expression hardens as he wonders if she chooses to present herself this way intentionally. as though trying to draw attention from those around her. His sudden words leave Eunbyul startled. As Soo-hyun confronts Eunbyul, his thoughts wander into dangerous territory. He recalls the 2 years of his marriage where he constantly restrained himself, forcing patience and swallowing his own desires for the sake of peace. Now, with the divorce final, a reckless voice in his mind whispers that he can finally do whatever he wants. Yet before the thought takes root, Eunbyul's voice pulls him back. She calls his name repeatedly, her tone laced with concern, and asks if he is feeling unwell. Snapping out of his reverie, Soo-hyun insists that it is nothing, quickly masking his inner conflict. He shifts the conversation back to business, telling her that he will leave the explanation of the new project to the chairman instead. His words catch her off guard, leaving her momentarily startled. Soon after, he dismisses her, telling her she can take her leave. Eunbyul acknowledges politely and walks out of the office, leaving Soo-hyun alone with his unsettled mind. He leans back in his chair, silently wondering what is wrong with him for entertaining such thoughts in the first place. Later that night, Soo-hyun is seen at a lively izakaya bar with a few of his close friends. One of his friends raises a frothy cup of beer with a broad grin, congratulating him on his newfound freedom and telling him he can finally begin his solo life. Soo-hyun, however, lowers his gaze and mutters that he feels like a complete mess rather than someone to be celebrated. His mood darkens as another friend leans in, asking whether he really has any regrets left to speak of, reminding him that Seojia had toyed with his emotions far too many times. They argue that he has endured endless gaslighting, constant threats of divorce, and unbearable nagging, yet he still tried harder than most men ever would. If it had been them, they say with conviction, they would have ended the marriage long ago without hesitation. They continue to speak of Soo-hyun's advantages, pointing out that he has everything: wealth from a respected family, good looks, and a line of women who would willingly wait for a chance to be with him. At that moment, Soo-hyun admits something quietly, almost as if confessing to himself. He reveals that there's actually a woman at work who has been on his mind recently. His friends immediately latch onto this detail, their curiosity sparking. They exchange knowing glances and quickly conclude that the female employee must be showing genuine interest in him. With teasing grins, they urge him to test the waters, encouraging him to confirm her feelings if he is still unsure. His friends' voices echo in Soo-hyun's mind as they had urged him the night before to confirm their suspicions, to test whether the woman at work was truly interested in him or not. With that thought lingering, the next morning arrives and Eunbyul steps into his office. She stands with her usual composed expression, asking if there is anything he needs from her. Soo-hyun shakes his head slightly, telling her it is nothing important, and casually hands her a document, asking if she could shred it for him. As she reaches for the paper, Soo-hyun makes a small, deliberate gesture that sends a stack of documents sliding from the desk onto the floor. The papers scatter, startling Eunbyul for a moment. He immediately apologizes with a faint excuse that his hand slipped, while Eunbyul reassures him softly that it is fine. She kneels to gather the fallen pages, and Soo-hyun joins her, watching her carefully, paying attention to the subtleties of her movements and expressions. His chest tightens, and he can feel his heartbeat thundering louder than it should. The thought of his friends resurfaces, urging him to be bold, to take the risk and see where it leads. He hesitates, then makes the decision to test the waters. At first, Eunbyul does not resist or recoil, and this fuels the thought that perhaps she truly isn't acting. For a fleeting moment, he allows himself to believe she might be responding to him, but then her voice breaks through the silence, firm yet not unkind, telling him to stop. Reality crashes down, and Soo-hyun quickly apologizes, insisting that he did not mean to tease her. Just as he expects rejection, Eunbyul surprises him. A faint smirk tugs at her lips, her eyes gleaming with something playful. She tells him that he is moving far too quickly, warning that if he rushes like this, even those who hold feelings for him will only be frightened away. Her words pierce him, both confusing and exhilarating. She then adds, with a tone edged in amusement, that it is impressive he managed to notice at all. Though, if only he had paid closer attention sooner, things might have been different. Before he can process the weight of her remark, Eunbyul closes the distance herself. With boldness that leaves Soo-hyun startled, she makes a deliberate move toward him, shifting the balance of control entirely into her hands. Soo-hyun is completely taken aback by Eunbyul's sudden action, his thoughts tumbling over themselves in disbelief. The woman before him no longer looks like the same Eunbyul he has always known, the diligent employee, proper, composed, and respectful in every situation. Instead, she carries herself with an air of confidence and boldness that unsettles him. Her voice softens as she admits that she is happy to finally be close to him, as though a long-awaited desire has just been fulfilled. She goes on to confess that from the very first day she joined the company, her eyes had been drawn to him. She recalls how disappointed she was when she learned not long afterward that he was already married. Yet despite that knowledge, she still longed for his attention. Her words hit Soo-hyun with a force he does not fully understand, stirring both curiosity and hesitation within him. He finally manages to ask why she would go so far for him, what it is about him that makes her act this way. But instead of answering directly, Eunbyul only gives him a knowing look and tells him that he has no idea how long she has been waiting for this moment. Her gaze lingers, her expression half teasing, half serious, pulling him deeper into the moment. Soo-hyun, still unable to make sense of it all, admits that he does not understand her intentions. Eunbyul only smirks and challenges him lightly, telling him to make a guess. The playful confidence in her tone leaves him without words. At last, instead of pressing for answers, he decides to stop resisting and allows himself to give in, choosing to simply spend time with her in that charged silence. As the reality of the situation sinks in, a thought crosses his mind that makes him pause. He recognizes how absurd and reckless it all is, how ridiculous it feels to be swept into this moment so suddenly. Yet at the same time, another part of him whispers that perhaps the divorce had been a blessing in disguise. For the first time, he considers that ending his marriage might not have been a misfortune after all, but rather a doorway to something unexpected. The thought lingers with him as he walks through the company halls, his expression unreadable. At one point, he crosses paths with Seo-jia, and for a brief moment, the two lock eyes in a tense, unspoken stare. Without a word, Soo-hyun breaks the silence and strides past her coldly, refusing to acknowledge her. The unexpected chill in his demeanor leaves Seo-jia stunned, her lips parting as she tries to call after him. She asks him to wait, her voice tinged with urgency, but he continues forward without looking back. Left behind, Seo-jia's face darkens with sadness, her hand frozen in midair, as though reaching for someone already out of reach. Unbeknownst to them, Eunbyul stands at a distance, hidden from their view, her gaze sharp as she observes the entire scene. A faint thought crosses her mind, but she does not step forward, choosing instead to watch in silence. Later, Soo-hyun enters the elevator, the hum of machinery filling the quiet space. His thoughts drift immediately to the time he spent with Eunbyul, and before he realizes it, a small smile forms on his lips. The memory feels almost surreal, and he wonders in disbelief who could have predicted that Eunbyul, of all people, had feelings for him. He even murmurs aloud, questioning how he should act around her now, especially with Seo-jia still working in the same company and clearly having something to say earlier. The idea of being caught in some awkward misunderstanding unsettles him briefly, but he brushes it off with a shrug as the elevator doors slide open. Stepping out, he notices a woman struggling with a stack of boxes in the hallway, her voice filled with frustration as she complains to herself that she must have packed them too heavily. Soo-hyun approaches and offers his assistance, introducing himself casually by mentioning that he lives in the apartment directly opposite hers. The woman immediately brightens, relief flooding her face as she expresses her gratitude, admitting that it is their first time meeting and hoping it is not too rude to accept his help. Soo-hyun assures her it is nothing at all, easily lifting the heavy box with strength that surprises her. He asks where she would like him to set it down, and she directs him to bring it inside while she hurriedly unlocks the door. Inside her apartment, Soo-hyun notices framed photographs on the wall, pictures of the woman alongside her husband. Something about their faces stirs a flicker of familiarity in his memory, and he quietly wonders where he might have seen them before. The woman, meanwhile, thanks him again sincerely, explaining that without his help, she would have struggled to manage on her own. He waves off the thanks, telling her not to mention it and encouraging her to call on him again if she ever needs assistance. Curious, he asks if she has just moved in, to which she nods with a smile, confirming that today is her first day in the building. She adds warmly that it is nice to meet him, and that since they are neighbors, they will likely run into each other often, so they should get along well. Soo-hyun agrees politely, offers her a farewell greeting, and steps out of her apartment. As the door closes, the woman lingers by the entrance, her eyes following him with a contemplative expression. A quiet thought escapes her as she wonders if the man who just helped her is truly Han Soo-hyun. The next day at the company, Soo-hyun steps toward the elevator only to find Eun-biol already inside. The sudden encounter startles her, but she quickly recovers and greets him with a polite smile. He returns the greeting with a slight nod, his eyes glancing over her as if searching for a trace of the woman from yesterday. As the elevator hums quietly, he asks whether she made it home safely the night before. Her reply is formal, almost too formal, carrying none of the warmth or playfulness she had shown before. Just as Soo-hyun steels himself to bring up what happened between them yesterday, Eun-biol abruptly steps out at the next floor, leaving him behind without explanation. He watches her retreating figure with a mixture of confusion and frustration, silently wondering why she is acting so differently today. Later, during a meeting with his team, Soo-hyun listens to the reports before giving instructions. He tells them to correct certain errors and send the revised work to him for review. Before dismissing them, he adds casually that they should use the company card for lunch, a gesture that earns him gratitude from the employees. Yet, as he leaves the meeting room, his mind drifts again, and he mutters under his breath that he cannot stop thinking about yesterday, no matter how much he tries. Back in his office, the weight of his thoughts lingers until a knock at the door interrupts him. He calls for the person to enter, and Eun-biol steps inside, holding a neatly prepared file in her hands. She explains calmly that it is the progress report for the new drug development project he requested. He thanks her, his tone polite but edged with unspoken tension. She places the file on his desk and turns as if to leave, but before she can reach the door, Soo-hyun calls out to her, his voice firm. He tells her they need to talk about yesterday. His words carry the frustration he has held back since the morning. He demands to know why she is suddenly keeping her distance when he clearly remembers that she was the one who came to him first. He admits that he doesn't understand why he now feels as though he has to tread carefully, as if walking on eggshells around her. He presses further, wanting to know exactly what she is thinking. At first, Eun-biol remains quiet, but then she lowers her gaze and replies that what happened yesterday was a mistake. The word cuts sharply, and Soo-hyun immediately challenges her, asking what exactly she means by that. Her voice softens as she explains, her honesty weighing heavily in the air. She admits that for a moment she truly believed she had a chance with him, but then fear took hold. She confesses that she worried he would regret it, that he would look back and call it nothing more than a mistake. She adds that guilt has gnawed at her since then, especially because of Seo-jia. Even though her feelings for him are real, she does not want to be the reason his life becomes more complicated. She admits that if Seo-jia ever finds out, it will put Soo-hyun in an impossible position, and that thought alone makes her hesitate. Soo-hyun reassured Eun-biol, telling her not to worry about Seo-jia, that he would handle everything himself. His words carried a confidence that made Eun-biol breathe easier. With a soft smile, she admitted that his reassurance calmed her fears, and, emboldened, she decided to stay and spend a little more time with him. Meanwhile, in the accounting team office, Seo-jia was buried in paperwork when her computer chimed with a new message. It was from Eun-biol, the tone oddly curt. Head manager's office, meeting in 30 minutes. Seo-jia frowned, confused. She hadn't heard of any scheduled meeting that day. Still, assuming it was something important, she prepared her documents and made her way toward the head manager's office at the designated time. Back in Soo-hyun's office, their playful banter is starkly at odds with the secretive weight of their situation. Neither of them realized that Seo-jia was already on her way, unaware of what she was about to walk into. While Soo-hyun and Eun-biol are still engrossed in their fun, the door suddenly opens. Seo-jia walks in, her eyes widening in shock at the sight before her. Soo-hyun freezes, equally startled, and stammers out a question, demanding why she is here. Seo-jia confronts him with trembling words, asking if this is the reason he divorced her. Soo-hyun quickly tries to explain, but she cuts him off, her voice breaking. She laments how difficult it was for her to come, how she still clung to the hope that something remained between them. Tears stream down her face as she realizes the truth, that everything is truly over. With a burst of anger, she turns and storms out, ignoring Soo-hyun's desperate call for her to wait. Left in stunned silence, Suhyun wonders why everything has turned out this way, and questions why Seojia even came. His thoughts are interrupted by Eunbyul's sly chuckle. When he asks what she means, she leans closer, her tone sharp with amusement. She explains that she saw everything yesterday. The cold distance between him and Seojia in the corridor, the way they no longer commuted together, how they acted like strangers. She suspected something had happened, but never imagined it had gone as far as divorce. So she admits she called Seojia herself, just to confirm, and now she's glad she did. Shaken, Suhyun asks if she means that she is behind all of this. Eunbyul nods with a smirk, saying that now nothing is holding them back from enjoying themselves, pointing out that he seems happy about it too. Later that night, at a dimly lit bar, Suhyun slams his cup against the counter. He lets out a bitter laugh, muttering to himself that maybe it's for the best. After all, this puts a permanent stop to everything. He convinces himself he did nothing wrong. After all, they are already divorced. Suhyun agrees with what Eunbyul said earlier, convincing himself that they can now have fun without anything holding them back. He mutters that he is finally going to try everything he couldn't do all this time. At that moment, a purple-haired lady approaches him at the bar. She looks at him closely before speaking, then introduces herself as Yu Minji from the management team. She explains that she had been watching him from afar, thinking it looked like him from behind, and finally decided to come over and say hello. But Suhyun just keeps staring at her in silence, his expression unreadable. Awkwardly, Minji smiles and says that she'll get going, preparing to walk away. Minji eventually finds herself seated beside Suhyun, and he remarks that he recalls seeing her once during a work dinner. She acknowledges his memory with quiet gratitude, admitting that she had not expected him to remember her at all, and adds that she is thankful he did. He brushes it off as nothing significant, confessing that he never thought he would encounter a colleague in a place like this, and she agrees that the coincidence is rather unexpected. As the silence stretches, she admits that she had worried she might be intruding, since it looked as though he was spending a private moment on his own. She apologizes softly for interrupting what could have been his solitude, yet he assures her that she has done nothing wrong, insisting that he is glad she chose to approach him. He explains that his only intention tonight was to drink until the weight of the day faded away. The conversation drifts toward the place itself, and he wonders aloud whether she comes here often. She admits that she does not, since the bar is far too expensive for her to visit casually, though she confesses that she allows herself a couple of visits each month. He nods in agreement, and she continues, explaining that the setting is so refined that she sometimes comes just to capture a few photographs for social media, and at other times she comes simply because she wants to drink without restraint. There are nights, she adds, when a person feels weighed down, unwilling to return home, yet finds it just as difficult to meet with friends, so this place becomes the only refuge when nowhere else feels right. Catching herself, she suddenly apologizes for rambling on, claiming that she must have been speaking only for her own sake. Suhyun counters with quiet sincerity, saying that he actually enjoys listening to her words, and she admits, almost sheepishly, that while she normally does not speak much, once she begins, she finds it hard to stop. Their exchange softens in tone, and he eventually observes that she must have come here tonight because she was feeling lonely. She concedes that he is right, though she clarifies that her loneliness is not tied to the difficulties of work. Suhyun reasons silently that Minji is quite attractive, and he finds himself wondering if he should try to get to know her better. The thought makes him uneasy, since Seojia has been the only woman in his life, and the idea of opening up to someone new feels unfamiliar and a little intimidating. When Minji admits that she has always thought highly of him, claiming that she finds him cool, he is caught off guard. She explains herself further, saying that he is kind, does meaningful work, and has an admirable appearance. Suhyun is unsure if she is simply teasing him, but her expression suggests sincerity. She quickly becomes embarrassed by her own words, remarking that she might have overshared again before clarifying that what she truly means is that she respects him deeply. Suhyun responds with gratitude, and in turn admits that after working with her, he has realized she is very attractive herself. Minji appears surprised by this, confessing that she has never received such a compliment before, but thanks him earnestly. The conversation then takes an unexpected turn when Minji learns that Soohyun is divorced. She expresses her surprise, confessing that she had never noticed any sign of strain between him and Seojia. Soohyun, drowning the contents of his cup, explains that they had simply been acting the part, unwilling to allow their personal conflicts to interfere with their professional lives. When she presses further, hoping to understand what truly happened, he brushes it aside, claiming it is too complicated to recount, and that there is no point revisiting something that is already over. She wonders aloud what path he intends to take from here, and Soohyun admits he does not know yet. Perhaps, he suggests, he should meet someone new. He adds, almost as a piece of advice, that she should never repeat his mistakes, and that she ought to be kind to her boyfriend. His words leave her startled, and realizing his error, Soohyun apologizes, muttering that he must already be drunk and telling her to forget what he said. Yet Minji does not let the moment fade. Instead, she stares at her glass of beer, grips it firmly, and drinks it down all at once. With a newfound resolve in her voice, she declares that she does not have a boyfriend, making it clear that she is single, just like him. Then, with a quiet but firm conviction, she adds that if she had been in Seoja's place, she would never have let him go. The words strike Soohyun deeply, stirring something within him, and he finds himself compelled to ask what she would have done differently. The question lingers between them, carrying a weight of unspoken meaning, and for a moment, the two of them become lost in the atmosphere of the night. Minji and Soohyun spend the evening together, laughing and enjoying each other's company in the quiet of a room. At one point, Minji hesitates and asks if it's really okay to be doing this, admitting that she has only seen workplace relationships in dramas. Soohyun reassures her gently, telling her not to worry, that he will make sure nothing bad happens to her. He explains that television and real life are different, but Minji confesses that what worries her is how those stories often end in heartbreak. Later, while they are together in the bathroom, Minji says with a shy laugh that it almost feels like they're dating. Soohyun responds with a playful smile, saying it just shows how interested she is in him. But her expression turns a little serious as she asks if, now that he is divorced, he plans on seeing many other women. She tells him that, being wealthy and handsome, women will naturally be drawn to him. Soohyun tries to brush it off nervously, insisting it won't be like that. Minji shakes her head, insisting that she means it, and then with a hint of resolve asks if they can keep seeing each other, perhaps not often, but at least once in a while. Later that night, Soohyun heads home with a smile tugging at his lips. "Now I have two," he mutters under his breath, amused at himself. He keeps murmuring as he walks toward the elevator, thinking how impossible this would have felt before the divorce, and how strangely easy everything feels now. But as the elevator doors open, a neighbor's cheerful voice startles him. He quickly returns her greeting, wondering if she overheard his self-talk. The woman notes how good his mood seems, which makes him cover by saying he had a work dinner tonight. She remarks that not many people enjoy such dinners, and that he must have great coworkers. Soohyun nods with a polite smile. Then, with casual warmth, she asks if he would like to come in for a cup of tea. Soohyun is shocked when his neighbor suddenly invites him over to her place for a cup of tea, claiming that she has a special blend that works well for hangovers. The unexpected invitation catches him off guard, and his hesitation is clear on his face. The woman quickly notices his expression and, with a small smile, asks if perhaps he dislikes tea. Embarrassed, Soohyun immediately shakes his head and assures her that it is not the case. On the contrary, he explains that he actually likes tea. Hearing his words, she wastes no time in taking him by the arm and gently pulling him along toward her apartment, leaving him unable to say anything in protest. Before he realizes it, Soohyun finds himself sitting in his neighbor's home, feeling slightly awkward about the situation. The atmosphere is unfamiliar, and he cannot help but wonder what could have gotten into this woman. A small part of him even questions whether she might be interested in him, though he quickly brushes the thought aside, not wanting to assume too much. Not long after, the woman returns with a tray, carefully placing a steaming cup of tea in front of him. Soohyun thanks her politely, and after taking a sip, he remarks that she really did not need to go through all this trouble. He gently advises her that she should not have stressed herself to such an extent, but his words are met with a calm and unexpected reply. She reminds him that he helped her move her belongings the other day, and this small gesture is simply her way of returning the favor. Her explanation catches Soo-hyun completely by surprise, as he had not expected her to remember, let alone prepare something in return. The woman then tells him plainly that the reason she invited him over was so she could properly thank him and show her gratitude, which she chooses to do through the tea she prepared with care. Hearing this, Soo-hyun feels a bit flustered and once again insists that she really did not have to go to such lengths. But the woman only shakes her head and assures him that it was important for her to express her appreciation in this way, leaving Soo-hyun silently accepting her sincerity. It is at that very moment that Soo-hyun begins to realize he has probably been overthinking the simple gesture of kindness his neighbor has extended towards him. The more he reflects on it, the more he understands that perhaps he has been reading too much into her invitation for tea, imagining hidden intentions that may not even exist. This realization gradually makes him believe that the woman might very well be married and living a perfectly ordinary life with her husband, which reassures him that she likely has no ulterior motives behind her actions. Yet, not long after, he notices that the woman's gaze lingers on him in a way that feels deliberate, as though she is trying to study his face or read his thoughts. Feeling slightly unsettled by her silence, Soo-hyun decides to take the initiative to start a conversation. With a cautious smile, he remarks that he can guess her husband is not at home at the moment. To this, the woman responds calmly, explaining that she herself is not entirely sure when her husband will be back that night. Encouraged by her openness, Soo-hyun asks her about the type of work her husband does, and she patiently explains that her husband holds a regular office job, but is frequently required to work overtime. She even adds, with a touch of weariness in her voice, that there are days when her husband does not return home at all. Hearing this, Soo-hyun pauses for a brief moment, carefully weighing his response, before acknowledging that, from the way she describes him, it seems her husband must take his work very seriously. He comments that such dedication is something worth commending. In turn, the woman politely shifts the focus back to him by asking what kind of work he himself does. Soo-hyun responds simply, saying that he too is an office worker. The moment he says this, the woman narrows her eyes slightly, as though something about his face sparks a sense of recognition. She admits he looks strangely familiar to her. At the same time, Soo-hyun also begins to feel the same way, realizing that her features remind him of someone he might have encountered before. Driven by curiosity, he makes several attempts to pinpoint exactly where they might have met, naming a few places where he thinks he could have seen her. However, each of his suggestions is met with a gentle shake of the head, as the woman insists she has never been to those places. His repeated but fruitless efforts leave him somewhat disappointed, frustrated that he cannot identify the connection his instincts are hinting at. Eventually, he concedes with a faint smile, telling her that if he ever manages to remember the exact moment or place where they might have crossed paths before, he will be sure to let her know. The woman, amused yet curious, accepts this, saying that she believes he will eventually recall it when the time is right. Soo-hyun finally makes his way outside, his mind still wandering as he reflects on the conversation he just had. Even after stepping out, the image of the woman lingers in his thoughts. Something deep inside tells him that he has seen her somewhere before, but no matter how hard he tries, the memory refuses to surface. He pauses for a brief moment, standing in silence, before deciding to let it go altogether. He convinces himself that if it were something truly important, he would have remembered instantly. With that thought, he exhales softly and begins walking away, determined not to dwell further on it. Just as he starts moving on his path, a sudden awareness washes over him. He feels the distinct sensation of someone approaching. His instincts force him to look up, and to his utter shock, standing before him is Jia. His eyes widen, disbelief rushing through him, because he never imagined encountering her there of all places. Jia meets his gaze, her expression a blend of bitterness and provocation. She tells him how she had thought by now he would have missed her, even though their marriage had already ended. Yet, from what she has seen, Soo-hyun has never once shown signs of missing her, not even a flicker, ever since she caught him enjoying himself with Eunbyul. Her words pierce sharply, but Soo-hyun remains frozen, unable to form a reply. Throughout everything she says, he stands in silence, weighed down by emotions he cannot even begin to process. Then, to his absolute astonishment, Jia's tone shifts. She volunteers to give him what she believes he has wanted so badly in the past. With a calm but deliberate resolve, she offers him her company for the night, suggesting that she is willing to let him spend time with her, something he had once longed for when they were still together. The words strike Soo-hyun harder than anything else she has said. He is taken aback far beyond expectation, his heart pounding in disbelief. His entire body goes stiff, unable to move even a single step, as though the ground itself has anchored him in place. Speechless and overwhelmed, he can only stand still, watching as Jia takes control of the moment. Eventually, when Soo-hyun comes back to his senses, he asks Jia what she is trying to do. Jia replies that she is only doing what he has always wanted and what she once promised she would always give him. Jia continues with her actions, but suddenly, Soo-hyun tells her to stop. She halts for a moment, but then insists that she must have something with him, forcing him to lie down as she takes the lead. In the middle of it, Soo-hyun begins to think. He realizes that if this continues, Jia might use it as a reason to return to their relationship, something he has no intention of allowing. With that in mind, he pushes Jia away by force, telling her that no amount of so-called fun can ever fix their broken bond. Jia, however, responds that she isn't even doing it for the relationship. Still, Soo-hyun refuses to listen. With a fierce expression, he repeats that it is already too late for her. His reaction shocks Jia. He then tells her to act like she always has before and simply leave, warning her not to disappoint him more than she already has. Soo-hyun's words cut deep, leaving Jia in tears as she breaks down, feeling small and defeated. But he doesn't spare her a single thought. Later, Soo-hyun meets with his friend and recounts everything that happened. The friend is stunned at how coldly he pushed Jia out of his life, and even more shocked that, despite it all, Soo-hyun still goes on to be involved with 2 other women outside of her. His friend expects that since Jia has gone to such great lengths to try and bring their broken relationship back together, the least Soo-hyun should have done was to spend a little time with her and not crush her pride so mercilessly the way he did. From his friend's perspective, Jia swallowing her pride and making that offer shows she is desperate to salvage something, and rejecting her so coldly feels unnecessarily cruel. But Soo-hyun feels that his friend is reacting far too strongly to what he has just shared with him, so he reminds him bluntly that he was the one who had originally advised him to live freely and do whatever he wants now that he is divorced. He tells him that he is simply following that advice, nothing more and nothing less. His friend admits that he remembers giving him that advice, but he tries to clarify that what he meant was not that Soo-hyun should completely sever things with Jia in such a harsh way. He only wanted Soo-hyun to enjoy his freedom, not to slam the door shut on his ex-wife so forcefully. However, Soo-hyun refuses to agree with that reasoning. He explains that to him, the relationship was already over long ago, and no amount of pretending or forced reconciliation can change that fact. He adds that he does not care how Jia chooses to act outside or how she tries to save face, because his mind will never change. If anything, her attempt now only feels even more fake to him than ever before. Even so, his friend continues to question him, wondering why he seems so conflicted and messed up inside. He wants Soo-hyun to be certain that his attitude is not just because he enjoys having casual fun with other women and is using that as an excuse to avoid facing his emotions. Although he is upset with the way Soo-hyun handled things with Jia, his friend still admits that he is somewhat glad that Soo-hyun followed the advice he had once given him to stop holding back. The problem, however, is that in this particular case with Jia, it makes him too angry to know whether he should be praising Soo-hyun for his boldness or scolding him for his cruelty. Soo-hyun, on the other hand, is no longer concerned with how his friend feels. In his eyes, his friend's agitation is nothing but jealousy disguised as concern, and he refuses to let that bother him anymore. Eventually, his friend waves off the discussion and changes the subject. He casually asks Soo-hyun if he plans to attend their upcoming high school reunion, adding with a sly smile that his very first girlfriend Ji-young will be there as well. Hearing that name catches Soo-hyun's attention, and without much hesitation, he agrees to attend. A few days later, Soo-hyun is seen preparing for the reunion. He dresses neatly and even sprays on cologne, something he has never bothered to wear before. The unfamiliar scent lingers around him, making him wonder for a brief moment if he might have overdone it. But with no time to turn back and no desire to second guess himself further, Soohyun is already walking down the hallway when the thought of Ji-young suddenly crosses his mind. The very same Ji-young his friend had mentioned earlier when inviting him to the reunion. He reflects on how much time has passed since they last saw each other and begins to wonder if she has changed so much that he might even be able to recognize her anymore. Or worse, that she might not recognize him at all after all these years. His mind is still caught up in these thoughts when, without warning, the woman from his next-door apartment appears in the hallway, making her way toward him with an air of familiarity. The moment his eyes meet hers, something clicks inside his head, and all at once the blurred pieces of memory fall into place. It is at that precise instant that Soohyun realizes why she has always looked oddly familiar to him. She does not wait for him to put it into words, however, because as soon as she notices the recognition dawning in his expression, she takes the lead and asks him directly if he now remembers who she really is. To his surprise, the woman he has been trying to place all this time, the one he could not quite recall despite the nagging feeling of recognition, turns out to be none other than Ji-young herself, the very woman who was once his first love. Despite how Soohyun still sees Ji-young knows he does not truly recognize her yet. He might only be recalling her as the woman he helped the other day. Eventually, Ji-young introduces herself, and the revelation shocks Soohyun. Later, they go inside, where the others are already drinking. Soohyun sits amidst two of his former classmates, while his friend and another guy sit down with Ji-young. The two ladies beside Soohyun keep asking him endless questions. Where he works, how much he earns, and even if there are vacancies in the design department where one of them could apply. But as they question him, Soohyun barely listens. His eyes remain fixed on Ji-young. He stares at her so intently that Ji-young eventually notices. When he realizes she is staring back at him, Soohyun quickly averts his gaze. Yet throughout, his mind lingers on how much Ji-young has changed. She has grown more striking, still just as pretty as before, and the thought that she has become his new neighbor feels unreal to him. After they finish the first round of drinks, the ladies suggest going for a second round at a karaoke bar. Most of the guys agree, and they prepare to leave together. Only Soohyun and Ji-young do not join. They call out to Ji-young, urging her to come along, but she hesitates. When they call out to Soohyun, he tells them he is already heading home. As he stands up, they try to convince him to stay, insisting that since this is their first reunion after such a long time, he should wait a little longer. But Soohyun apologizes, insisting on leaving early, and promises to see them next time. Reluctantly, his friends let him go, though they make it clear that next time he has no choice but to stay. That's how Soohyun leaves the group behind, choosing not to linger any longer, while Ji-young silently watches him take his leave. As he steps outside, a wave of relief washes over him, as though he has been freed from a stifling atmosphere. He continues down the street, walking slowly toward home, reflecting on the evening and thinking to himself that the entire get-together was nothing more than a waste of his time. Just as he is immersed in his thoughts, he suddenly hears someone calling his name from behind. Turning back in mild surprise, he sees Ji-young hurrying after him, running until she finally catches up. Panting heavily from the short sprint, Ji-young informs him that she has also decided not to attend the second round of the reunion. Instead, she proposes that they head home together, since they happen to be neighbors. After a brief pause, she goes further and asks if he might like to stop by her house for a drink before calling it a night. The suggestion shocks Soohyun for a moment. He never expected such an invitation, but after hesitating, he accepts. Before long, the two of them find themselves seated in Ji-young's living room, drinks in hand, the atmosphere far more intimate and relaxed than the crowded gathering they have just left behind. Their conversation begins lightly, drifting from one topic to another, until Ji-young gradually reveals something that takes Soohyun by surprise. She admits that the only reason she attended the reunion at all was because of him. She had hoped, somewhere deep down, that she might meet him there again after all this time. The confession makes Soohyun pause, startled that she had come with him in mind. Afterward, the words between them run out, and a heavy silence fills the room. It lingers for a while, broken only when Ji-young finally speaks again. In a soft but honest tone, she tells Soo-hyun that she has been thinking about him frequently, and as a result, she has missed him, though she is quick to add that he should not take it the wrong way. Her words bring back memories, and she suddenly reminds him of their very first date, when they sat together in much the same way, drinking and talking late into the night. The moment she mentions it, Soo-hyun also remembers, and he adds his own recollection, noting how that night had ended with them spending it together. Yet, as soon as he voices this memory, he notices a sudden change in Ji-young's expression, a subtle shift in her mood. Realizing he might have said too much, he quickly apologizes, brushing it off by claiming he must have been drunk back then and should not have brought it up. Ji-young, however, waves away his concern. She assures him that he need not apologize, because it was not an unpleasant memory after all, and certainly not something she regrets. Later on, in the midst of their quiet conversation, Soo-hyun finally confessed something personal to Ji-young. He told her that he had recently gone through a divorce. The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, heavy and unexpected. Ji-young widened her eyes in surprise, her expression softening almost immediately afterward. She asked him gently if he was all right, because she could only imagine the kind of difficult period he must have endured. Her concern was sincere, and for a brief moment, Soo-hyun felt both exposed and comforted at the same time. After a while, Soo-hyun decided it was time to leave. He felt that the mood had turned serious, and he did not want to burden her with the weight of his problems any further. Rising to his feet, he smiled faintly and began to bid her good night. He suggested that they should meet more often, perhaps as a way to not let their reunion end so abruptly. Just as he turned to go, Ji-young suddenly reached out and grabbed his hand. She held on to him firmly, as though afraid to let him slip away again. Stepping closer, she lingered there for a few seconds in silence. Then, realizing what she had done, she quickly withdrew a little and murmured an apology, blaming her boldness on the alcohol they had been drinking. Even so, her eyes betrayed what her words tried to cover. She confessed quietly how much she had loved the relationship they once shared, and how even though they had gone their separate ways, she continued to cherish those memories. She admitted that during those days, Soo-hyun had made her feel truly alive, giving her a kind of warmth and happiness she had never forgotten. For that reason, she now asked him, hesitant yet hopeful, whether it would be wrong of her to wish for them to relive just a fragment of those moments, even if only for that one night. Without saying much in return, Soo-hyun simply looked at her for a while and did what she wanted. As Soo-hyun spends time with Ji-young, she remembers how it felt back when it was their first time together. Even Soo-hyun admits that he never thought he would experience this with her again, and now he feels it even more deeply compared to back then. Ji-young tells him that it is because they are mature now, unlike before, when they were clumsy. While thinking about it, Soo-hyun realizes why he felt Ji-young has changed so much. Still, he feels strange enjoying this moment with her, wondering if it is only happening because they are drunk and not something they would do in their right senses. Yet, another thought creeps into his mind. What if Ji-young's husband finds her in this state with an old classmate? But Ji-young, on the other hand, is lost in the moment. Just all of a sudden, beep sound startles them. It is the doorbell. Her husband has arrived and is pressing it repeatedly. When he does not hear a response, he calls out her name to announce that he is home. The moment Soo-hyun and Ji-young hear this, fear grips both of them instantly. By the time Ji-young's husband finally stepped inside, both she and Soo-hyun had already managed to compose themselves and dress up, concealing the situation that had almost unfolded. Ji-young hurried toward the entrance to greet him warmly, trying to appear calm and collected. She expressed surprise at his return that night, since he had earlier mentioned that an overwhelming workload at the office would keep him occupied until late. Her husband explained, however, that he had rushed through his tasks and, despite the pressure, had been told to come home earlier than expected. While he spoke casually with his wife, his attention soon shifted, and he noticed Soo-hyun standing quietly nearby. Without allowing Soo-hyun the chance to speak, Ji-young quickly stepped in to offer an explanation. She introduced Soo-hyun as her old classmate, someone she had reconnected with during the recent reunion she attended, and emphasized that it was purely coincidental that he also happened to be their next door neighbor. This clarification seemed to ease any possible tension, and her husband showed no sign of suspicion. Instead, he extended a gesture of courtesy, offering Soohyun a seat before he left. As the conversation went on, Ji-young's husband unexpectedly addressed Soohyun by his name. The sudden familiarity startled Soohyun, who could not help but wonder how the man knew him so well. The husband then elaborated that he recognized his face from somewhere, recalling that Soohyun worked as the head manager, a role that made him stand out within their professional circles. This recognition created more space for conversation, and although Soohyun politely apologized for visiting at such an hour, admitting that it might have been discourteous, Ji-young's husband dismissed the concern, assuring him it was no trouble. He even went further, handing Soohyun his business card as a gesture of goodwill and possible future connection. During this exchange, Ji-young quietly excused herself and slipped into the kitchen, where she busied herself preparing a meal for her husband. Not long after, Soohyun finally rises to take his leave, and although Ji-young's husband makes it clear that he is welcome to visit their home again in the future, Soohyun simply expresses his appreciation for the gesture. Ji-young makes an attempt to accompany him outside, but he gently declines the offer, showing gratitude for her hospitality before stepping out. She quietly locks the door behind him, returning to her husband as Soohyun walks away. As he steps out into the night, Soohyun's mind becomes restless, caught between guilt and satisfaction. He cannot stop replaying in his thoughts the encounter he just had with Ji-young, the forbidden moment they shared, and the tense possibility of being discovered by her husband. The thrill of what had taken place lingers heavily, filling him with a twisted sense of happiness, even though the risk had nearly been disastrous. Despite his unease, he begins to wonder whether there might ever be another opportunity with Ji-young, though the thought soon intertwines with the memory of Kang Min-soo, her husband, who now stands out more vividly in his mind since learning that he also works in the same company. Curiosity compels him to act, and the very next day at work, Soohyun begins to dig into Min-soo's background, quietly searching for personal details that might explain the man's character or position. At first, the search yields nothing extraordinary, and Min-soo appears to be a man of no particular distinction beyond his professional title. Growing weary of the effort, Soohyun momentarily questions his own obsession, wondering why he is even wasting time peering into another man's private affairs. Yet the thought of Ji-young unsettles him again, for the reality that she, his first woman, now belongs to another man stirs something deeply uncomfortable within him. That contradiction eats away at him, and he cannot let go of it so easily. Later, in an attempt to silence his turmoil, Soohyun turns to Eunbiol. He uses their time together as a way to drown his thoughts, deliberately taking control of her in a manner that feels more like punishment than affection. Beneath the surface, however, it is not anger that drives him, but the satisfaction of indulging his cravings, a selfish hunger that he struggles to suppress. Eunbiol, eager to appease him and, perhaps desperate for release from his intensity, does everything she can to please him. Eventually, Eunbiol completely gives in to his punishment, and this unexpected reaction makes Soohyun feel a certain sense of disappointment within himself, as he silently wonders why such a seemingly small measure of control is enough to make her surrender so easily. Though Eunbiol calmly explains to him that no one, regardless of their willpower, would be able to withstand such treatment without breaking at some point. After much pleading and persistence from her side, Soohyun finally allows himself to agree to give Eunbiol what she has been desperately asking for, since she has been begging him for it for such a long time, and after some time when they eventually finish, Eunbiol quietly begins to prepare herself to leave. However, just as she is about to go, Soohyun calls her back, which makes her stop in surprise, and when she turns to face him, she asks him directly if there is any particular task he wishes to assign to her at that moment. Without hesitation, Soohyun responds, making it clear that what he actually wants from her is assistance in looking into the activities of the sales team number 2, a request that immediately shocks Eunbiol and leaves her momentarily speechless, as she cannot help but wonder what could have possibly happened for him to demand such a thing from her. Nevertheless, Soohyun emphasizes his words with a stern and serious expression, instructing her in no uncertain terms that she must investigate as thoroughly as possible, going into every detail she can find, including the overall performance within that department, the results achieved by the employees, and every single piece of relevant information that could shed light on their true state. Biol has no choice but to follow the instructions she is given, even if she does not fully understand the reasoning behind them. She even goes as far as asking Soo-hyun whether he has any other task in mind for her to carry out, but he responds calmly that he does not, which makes her decide to finally take her leave. However, just as she is about to step out, Soo-hyun calls her back once more, and she turns to respond. With a composed expression, he asks her if she will have any free time after work that day, mentioning that he would like to know when she might be available in the evening so that they could go out and share dinner together. Although Eun-biol is touched by the thought and appreciates the offer, she politely declines almost immediately. She explains in a steady voice that considering the circumstances of their current situation, she would prefer if they kept their relationship strictly physical rather than personal, because she believes maintaining such boundaries is safer for both of them. Her words linger in the air, and it is only then that Soo-hyun takes a moment to reflect seriously on what she has said. He realizes that she is indeed right, and perhaps he has been too forward in making that suggestion. Feeling slightly embarrassed, he apologizes for being too straightforward and admits that perhaps he should not have brought it up in the first place. But Eun-biol quickly reassures him that there is no need for him to feel sorry, instead saying that she should be the one apologizing for refusing his invitation so abruptly. She advises him gently that they should only consider having dinner together once they have grown closer in understanding and trust, when such a gesture would feel natural rather than forced. Soo-hyun, after listening carefully, nods in agreement and accepts her perspective without further objection, allowing her to finally take her leave. In-biol steps out gracefully and closes the door behind her. Once she is gone, Soo-hyun leans back and begins to complain under his breath, voicing his frustration at the contradiction in her behavior. He mutters about how Eun-biol always acts as if she would do absolutely anything for him without hesitation, yet at the same time she insists on keeping her distance. This makes Soo-hyun start wondering if Eun-biol no longer wants anything from him, apart from the nice time they share. Just then, he checks his phone and sees a message from Minji, asking if he is free from work. He replies immediately and asks if she would like to watch a movie together. In his mind, Soo-hyun feels that Eun-biol cannot act however she likes toward him. After all, he has Minji as backup. Later, he meets up with Minji and they head to the cinema. The movie they choose turns out to be a horror action film. Soo-hyun finds it weird, brutal, and even disgusting, to the point he cannot keep watching. But Minji enjoys it with full interest. From this, Soo-hyun realizes that Minji has a more peculiar taste than he first thought. As he watches Minji focus on the movie, the thought of messing with her comes to his mind. He thinks about it for a while and then decides to make advances. Minji's body cannot handle it at the cinema anymore, so she chooses for them to leave before the movie ends. She does not want them to get caught. They move to the toilet instead. Minji hesitates, worried they might also get caught there, but Soo-hyun ignores her concern. Just while they are at it, two guys walk into the toilet to relieve themselves. They complain about wasting money on the movie, saying they could have just gone to play a PC game instead, and then start discussing what to eat that night. At that moment, Soo-hyun recognizes one of them. To avoid being seen, he quickly pulls Minji closer, covers her mouth so she will not make a sound, and keeps them hidden in silence. Minji struggles desperately not to let out a single sound, while she and Soo-hyun remain pressed together inside the cramped toilet stall, knowing that there are still people in the restroom. Her face turns red as she bites down on her lower lip, fighting against the urge to react, while her entire body trembles under the tension of being discovered. Soo-hyun, however, smirks with amusement at her effort, whispering under his breath that she is surprisingly good at holding it in. Finding the situation far too entertaining, he decides to become more proactive and deliberately pushes her further, causing Minji to finally let out a muffled sound. The sudden noise startles the two guys at the urinals. They stop mid-conversation, frowning in confusion, and one of them mutters that it sounded suspiciously like a woman's voice. The guy in the blue shirt becomes curious and leans closer to the stall door, tilting his head as if trying to eavesdrop. He insists that he definitely heard something unusual coming from inside. The other guy, clearly uncomfortable with the idea, urges him to ignore it and just leave. But the blue shirt guy refuses to back off. Driven by nosy curiosity, he crouches down and tries to peek under the stall door. The moment his eyes fall on the pair of legs inside, his expression shifts to shock. Before he can say anything, Soo-hyun snaps at him angrily, berating him for the disgusting act of peeking at someone in the toilet. Embarrassed and flustered, the blue shirt guy quickly raises his hands in apology, stammering that he only did it because he heard strange noises and wanted to check. Without daring to linger any longer, he grabs his friend and rushes out of the restroom. As the door swings shut and silence returns, Minji exhales a shaky breath of relief, clutching her chest. She whispers that they almost got caught, her voice still trembling from both fear and excitement. Soo-hyun, on the other hand, does not appear shaken at all. Instead, he seems even more thrilled by the close call, his grin widening as if the danger of discovery only fuels his excitement. Later, the two of them are seen walking side by side down the dimly lit streets. Minji, still trying to steady her nerves, softly asks where they should go next. Soo-hyun glances at her with a puzzled look, asking what exactly she means by that. At that moment, the buzz of his phone interrupts, and he quickly pulls it out to check the message. His expression changes slightly as he reads it, and he turns back to Minji with an apologetic tone. He tells her that they should have drinks together another time, but for now, something urgent has come up, and he needs to take care of it immediately. Before Minji can fully respond, Soo-hyun already begins rushing off in the opposite direction. She calls out to him, her voice carrying a note of disappointment, but he does not stop or turn back. Left standing alone on the street, she lowers her gaze, her expression revealing the faint sting of being brushed aside. The scene shifts to the underground parking lot where Soo-hyun arrives in a hurry. He notices his neighbor waiting for him there, her posture tense as she steps forward the moment he approaches. With an apologetic tone, she admits that she is sorry for calling him out at such a late hour. Soo-hyun shakes his head and assures her that it is fine, brushing off her concern. He then asks calmly why she wanted to see him so urgently. In a hesitant but determined voice, she explains that there is something important she needs to talk to him about.